All right, everybody's got their, we'll put our microphones on a little bit. Good evening and welcome to the April 20th, 2023 Open Space Conservancy Trust video meeting. I'm Dr. Carolyn Mercer, Chair of the Open Space Conservancy Trust Board. Tonight's Open Space Conservancy Trust Board meeting is using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The Zoom video of this meeting is being recorded and will broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel tomorrow. Parks Operation Manager Sam Harb and Natural Resource Project Manager Lizzie Stone are participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public members may be listening to the meeting by telephone or via the internet. Welcome to all, and thank you for joining us this evening. So trustees, please make sure that your microphones are on, and Sam will take roll.
Chair Brissett.
Here.
Vice Chair Ford.
Here.
Secretary Ete.
Oh, you're muted.
Here. Sorry about that.
Trustee Bender. I'll vouch for that here. Trustee Olson.
Here.
Council Liaison Andrew.
Here.
Trustee Hildebrand.
Here.
All right, thank you all. Trustees, before we begin the business of tonight's meeting, I want to remind you of a few rules that do help the meeting to run more smoothly. If a board member has a question, please use the raise hand feature, and I'll try my best to recognize trustees in the order in which hands appear. Everyone will be asked to limit him or herself to one question and to one follow-up or clarifying question if necessary, so that each trustee has a chance to ask a question before a board member is given another chance to ask a question. It's important that each trustee have the opportunity to speak or ask a question before a second question is asked. Additionally, as we may have people attending by telephone, please speak your name before speaking. Individuals wishing to speak live during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone, via Zoom, or in person at Mercer Island Community and Event Center, provided that they register their desire to do so with staff by 4 o'clock today. Our staff will call on you by name or telephone number when it's your turn to speak. This gives people the opportunity to speak to the Open Space Conservancy Trust on any item. All remarks will be addressed to the trust as a whole and not to individual trustees or staff members. When it is your turn to address the trust, be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. And do remember that your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. So Sam, is there anyone who has signed up for an appearance tonight?
There's not.
All right, thanks for that. So having attended to that, we'll move on to the items for the regular business meeting. And the first item that we need to consider is the looking at the minutes and approving them from the meeting on January 19th, 2023. So does anyone have any suggestions for edits or corrections before we move to approval? All right, well, do I have a motion for approval?
I'll move approval. Jerry Port.
Jerry, okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Ete, seconds. All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minute meetings. And can we take a vote then? All those in favor, just raise your hands or say that's probably the best way for us to do this. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, I see you there. Okay. All righty. The minutes have been approved. So we'll move on to the second item, regular business, which is we're going to welcome Lizzie Stone, Natural Resource Projects Director, to talk about the trails plan work.
Thank you. This is Lizzie Stone speaking. I am the Natural Resources Project Manager, not a director, but thanks for that. I am going to share my screen. Hopes that it works. Give me just a moment here. I believe. Full screen mode is here.
It's coming.
Oh, it's so big on my screen. Can y'all see that?
There you go. Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So forgive me, I'm going to need to be looking a little bit away because my notes are over here. But I wanted to present y'all with the work plan for our trails in 2023. The work that we do on trails in Pioneer Park and Engstrom Open Space is completed by our Natural Resources crew, which is a seasonal crew we bring on each year, aided by myself and members of our parks maintenance team that have been helping out a lot on our trails throughout Pioneer Park and Engstrom. Currently, we have 2 crew members on our team, and we plan to bring on 1 more, hopefully soon. Typically, our staff report to the trust board on planned trail work in spring or early summer, and then they implement the plan throughout the season. We have already begun some of this work in specifically in Pioneer Park Northwest and Southeast, and I'll mention that in some of these maps. Oops, wrong. First, I wanted to summarize the work that we did in 2022. In 2022, their natural resources crew and our trails and urban forestry specialists, as well as members of the parks maintenance team and some volunteers, did trail work throughout trust properties. They worked on repairing some stairs along the ravine trail. They cleaned and repaired water bars, which is a way that we direct water off of trails in the southeast quadrant. They re-graveled some muddy areas. That was done by volunteers and our natural resources crew. You can see a couple of volunteers in this grainy photo here, preparing a trail to add some gravel. We also had a lot of work done for doing storm cleanup and removing downed trees and branches that fell across our trails, as well as maintenance, like our brushing, pruning, and leaf blowing that we do in the appropriate seasons for each of those tasks. So a lot of work done on our trails in 2022. In 2023, we our natural resources crew and parks maintenance team members have identified a lot of areas that need maintenance that are muddy, they're forming puddles, they may just be generally pretty slippery. We have already begun with re-graveling some of those locations, and there's a lot more to go. We had our natural resources crew out in the northeast quadrant in Engstrom in some of their first weeks on the job, and they identified some problem areas, some areas that were slipping down slope and needed to be shored up, some muddy zones and puddles. We will be managing pooling water as needed and as those are identified throughout the rest of the rainy season. We will be managing root intrusions as those are identified and reported throughout our trails to make sure that we don't have tripping hazards. That can be done by adding gravel around those roots at times to make it so that they are not protruding out of the trail, or sometimes if that's not really possible, just marking them brightly so that we can be sure folks see them. We're lessening the tripping hazard there. We also are going to be focusing on some intentional selective pruning in some of our trails, as well as our regular brushing and leaf blowing. So going quadrant by quadrant. In the northwest quadrant, I have some photos here of some of the muddier puddling areas that are pretty difficult to redirect that water because our grade is pretty flat and the water just wants to sit where it is. So we are working on adding some gravel to those zones, redirecting water wherever possible. I have on this map identified there are 4 of the locations where they've actually already, the crew has already started to replace gravel in those yellow dots there. And then there are also some trails that have been identified in the more in the interior of the park or of this quadrant, and those are being continuously added to our list. So this is a starting point, and we'll continue to add for those graveling projects. This zone is also somewhere that we often have to do early brushing and more frequent brushing to keep those shrubs back from the trail so that we can keep those trails accessible to folks throughout the season, throughout the growing season. This is an area we're going to be having the crew focus on doing some more intentional pruning where we make strategic cuts on some of those shrubs and trees so that they are going to hopefully be no longer growing so much into the trails. This is going to be a longer term solution rather than coming through and just hedge trimming everything back many times throughout the season. So hoping to lessen our workload in the long term by dedicating some time and thought to our pruning practices there. And then, of course, in other areas, we will need to just brush some stuff back. That's just kind of the nature of the way things grow in the summer around here. In the northeast quadrant and Engstrom open space, we have a lot of locations identified that are muddy or slipping down slope, that have pooling or puddling happening. So we'll be bringing a lot of gravel into different spots along in the northeast quadrant and in Engstrom open space. There are a lot of areas that need maintenance, and so we'll be dedicating a lot of crew time to this zone this year. We have not started any of this work yet, besides some more moment of redirection of water wherever possible. And in our southeast quadrant, we have already had the crew and the parks maintenance team member out re-graveling some areas in that northwest corner of the southeast quadrant. So they have already begun replacing some gravel there and compacting it down to make it a little more accessible during this rainy season. They will be continuing to do that work. There's a lot more to do there. There will also be some water bar cleaning and some thoughtful drainage redirection going on in Pioneer Park Southeast to ensure that the water's flowing off the trails whenever possible. So that is a lot of the work that's going to be going on, in addition to some of our more reactive managing branches that fall and storm cleanup and things like that. So that covers all of our quadrants. And next, I just wanted to touch on an additional discussion. So back a couple months ago, there was a mid-sized branch that fell down on a trail in Pioneer Park Northeast. It is circled, the area is circled here in yellow. This is an extension of the Fern Trail where it comes up and intersects with the Overlook Trail there. It was raised to us that this could be used as an opportunity to decommission this somewhat redundant route there in the Quadrants trail system. So that would involve, in order to decommission that small section of trail, that would involve some notable staff effort, natural resource crew effort. We would likely approach it by bringing in mulch and integrating that into the gravel to try to break up some of that compaction where that trail exists now, replace some woody debris along the trail corridor and place some things that are kind of barriers for folks so they don't want to walk on it. In the fall, we would be planting along the edges and allowing that vegetation to fill in. And then likely in the meantime, we would place some temporary signage there that would discourage folks from walking through while we are trying to decommission the trail. So in addition to approving our trails work plan, I wanted to bring it to the board to decide if you would like to make a motion or recommendation for this small section of trail, with the options being that we could clear it and maintain it as a trail as we always have, or we could make the effort to decommission that trail that is pretty redundant. There's another option for where to go pretty nearby, which takes staff time this year, but there are some benefits that we have discussed as a group, I think in pretty recent meetings last year. There are some benefits to decommissioning trails, and also it takes time. So it's sort of a trade-off that I wanted to kind of present to y'all as an option. So that is all that I have about our trails work plan and additional discussion.
Okay.
So I suppose I will stop sharing and open it up to y'all.
Well, before you do that,
Okay.
yeah, it's, Ms. Carolyn, I just wanted to ask, with the slide you have up there, where you
Oh,
have
here,
the
yes.
yellow, where you have the yellow circle. Oops, right
Yes,
there. Is that the area that you're specifically talking about?
yes.
Yeah, okay. Just want to make that clarification
Thank you. Yeah.
before you take the slides down. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So
Sure.
this is open for discussion. If you all would like to address the final issue that Lizzie presented to us. Are there?
Or I'm happy to show you any of the other
Yeah.
slides. This photo again, I guess, on this slide. Any of the other slides or quadrants, if you have any
Sure.
questions about them before I take the slides down, I'm happy
Okay.
to show you again.
Oh, I see two hands simultaneously. Okay, Thomas, you wanted to say something?
Okay, assume I'm off mute. Yes, I would be in favor of decommissioning that trail. I go through that section fairly frequently, and it seems like it is largely redundant.
Yeah.
And there's no need to have two trails so close together. So that would be my input on that suggestion.
Okay, thanks for that. Jerry?
Thanks. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other, but I did go out yesterday to look at the two trails and just get a handle on what it was. And it seemed like the clearing has been done already. So I think it's an independent question of whether the trail should be cleared. I mean, so it did seem that log had been taken out of the middle.
Yeah.
So when I looked at the two trails that are redundant with one another, it actually seems like the other one is shorter. This one comes out to the park bench, the overlook bench, which is often used.
Yeah.
And I would like to complicate the matter, I'm sorry, by discussing whether staff would consider doing the other trail, meaning the one kind of below it to the southeast, that one. Thank you. If we want to decommission, if there's a benefit to decommissioning a trail, I would like to offer that the other one, that this one is more important because it's visible to people at the bench who might want to go deeper into the forest. So like Tom, I agree with the idea of decommissioning. And I'd like to hear from staff if they have a comment on which of the two.
Yes, thanks for, so I believe that was cleared actually within the last week. So that is, I guess it wasn't a particularly big challenge to remove that log. It was more that just kind of triggered us thinking about whether it's worth us removing it, or I mean, worth us decommissioning that section. So good point. And I am open to that suggestion to remove this trail to the south. Sam and I have actually already talked about that a bit. He suggested the same thing. There are, I guess my thought was just sort of like the flow of the trails would move a little more smoothly without having this kind of point in it, but also that's not a big deal, not necessarily a reason to keep one or another. There may be like more habitat value in decommissioning a longer trail, but also if it is a trail that people are going to want to continue to use because that bench is there, and it's going to be more difficult to decommission, then that's definitely something to consider. So I'm open to that, and I don't have a really obvious answer that one is right or wrong.
Okay, Hillary, I see you have your hand up.
Just piggybacking on what you were talking about, Lizzie, in terms of the practical logistics of decommissioning a longer trail versus a shorter trail. Is there certain kind of vegetation on one or the other that would be more laborious and therefore more costly for the crews to be able to remove? Like, would you have to do a lot of stump grinding? Or are we just not there yet?
That's a really good question. I haven't gotten to that level, I guess, of going out and checking out the nuances of how the vegetation is different in those two zones. I do know that this, again, shouldn't necessarily be a deciding factor, but we will be having this, you will hear about this in our restoration work plan presentation, but this little triangle is grouped with this area over here for another thing to consider. So it's, they're, neither of those zones have received like a huge amount of weed removal or anything that's going to make them significantly different from each other. And I'm not thinking about anything that's going to like make one way harder than another, but that would, I'm open if y'all would like for us to do further assessment and check out that vegetation and see if there's one that seems more obvious, if that is y'all's recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's definitely certainly something that would be, I think enter into your calculus in the first place. But just as an aside, I'm part of the Climate Watch Audubon survey team that has started doing the bird counts in Pioneer Park. And that's one of the spots that we survey in. And there's a tremendous amount of bird life right in that area. So I think decommissioning that and decreasing the habitat, decreasing the kind of infringement on the habitat there would be really exciting. So I'm definitely for it.
Okay, Marie?
I want to pick on the very point. Could you point out to us where the bench is exactly? That trail was decommissioned. But you think that's accurate?
Sorry, I wasn't actually able to hear that question.
I think
You're
she,
kind of fuzzy. Were you asking, Marie, just to clarify, were you asking for Lizzie to point out where the bench is located on the map?
that's what I got from it.
That's what I think she asked.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but I believe that the bench is just right here up in the
Yeah.
top, like at this curve, sort of. Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so then I'm trying to envision how decommissioning that trail would impact accessing the bench.
I don't know that it would, you would still be able to access the bench because this overlook trail would still pass behind it. But it's just would be one fewer paths leading to the bench.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I agree with Hillary. We a little assessment as to the impact of the one versus the other.
Thomas, do you have your hand up again? Do you have the comment?
I thought we were moving on to a different discussion, but I'll come back to that. So.
All right, and I guess I have one question, Lizzie. If this tree hadn't fallen, have there been any events or issues that would cause us to want to decommission one of these two trails?
That's a good question. And another thing that Sam and I had talked about a bit. Unfortunately, we don't have quite granular enough data to see if like one of them has led to more maintenance than others or anything over time. So I don't have a strong argument there for one or another. That leads me there, as far as I'm aware, there is not one of those little sections that ends up being more of a problem and would be better for us to maintain. To decommission. So no, not really. I guess this is my response.
So, Marie, is your hand up again?
Not really, but I think what we're hearing is a lot of favorable response to decommissioning a trail, but we're not sure which one.
So, yes. So would it be helpful to the trustees then to have a little more information? And if so, what type of information would be helpful? Jerry, is your hand up?
Yeah, I would suggest that we move forward with an approval to decommission, have staff study it a little bit more and decide which makes sense. I mean, I would like to make a motion that author approves the idea of decommissioning it at staff's discretion, which of the two, and have them report back after they complete the work. That's what I would propose.
I second that motion.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion about this? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hands.
Hi.
You can see, aye. Okay, any nays? I don't think so. All right, I'm having trouble with the little thumbnails here. Okay, I think then the motion's carried.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see everybody. Can we confirm that there were not any nays?
Okay, are there any nays? Is there a verbal nay? Oops.
All right, got it.
Okay. All right. All right. Oh, and I guess we still need to approve the report as it's been presented to us, right? Okay, and that's what you had your hand up for. I'm going to keep all the raised hands straight here. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the report as it was provided to us?
So moved.
Okay. And a second, is that you?
Second.
Okay. All right. So any discussion on that? Tom, you have a comment?
Yes, so I had a few comments in general about how the trails are maintained in the park. So I think while we're approving the work plan, that's the appropriate place for discussion of that. So there are a couple of other sort of shunt trails that I would like to see decommissioned at the discretion of the work crew that's doing the work. So I would point out that on the central north-south trail in the northwest quad, there's a tree about halfway along the strawberry trail, a very large tree, probably a cedar. And on one side, there are roots which have come up through the soil. And that would be where the trail goes straightest through. And on the other side, there's kind of a loop around the other side of the tree, where I think people have been trying to avoid the roots. We should choose one of them and decommission the other one so that the trail is rooted around just one side of the tree. There's also the tree, it's a cottonwood or some fast-growing tree on the south trail, the inner south trail near the fire station with the heart-shaped moss on it. And there's people have begun to cut behind that tree, and I'd like to see logs or brush placed on the south side of that tree to route traffic on back onto the main trail and keep more erosion from happening there. And the third place of concern in the northwest quad is there's a little shunt trail very close to the picnic table. And this was discussed also in the past. There's root intrusions that come up there, and it would be best to decommission that little trail that has the roots exposed and try to route traffic on the south side of that tree that is sort of splitting the trail there. And I would be happy to meet with the work crew at their convenience and point out the areas that are of concern to me. And then regarding the low-lying areas that are being re-graveled, I see that the map's not comprehensive. And again, I'd be happy to go out with the trail crew and point out areas that I know get filled with water when there's lots of rain, and help the trail crew identify the places that need to be filled in. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. And Jerry, did you have comments?
Similarly, but I only had one, and I wonder if Lizzie would be so good as to pull up the northeast quadrant with the yellow dots. I had a concern about a spot on the trail as you're going down into the ravine where the trail goes, it takes almost a 90-degree right turn, and it looks to me like that might be one of the spots you're addressing, but I just wanted to call it out. There's a lot of roots in that area, and it's almost difficult to find a place to put your foot among all the roots. So I don't know if you want to move your mouse.
Yeah.
Yes,
you
that
mean
one.
That here? Okay, great. That is has a star on it on the map that we're working on as needing special attention. So yes, I appreciate you pointing that out. And I was muted, but I also appreciate your input, Tom. That is, I will likely call on you for that support and showing the crew those different areas. So thanks to both of you for pointing those out. That's really thanks for being eyes on the ground.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, with the addition of the comments that have been provided to Lizzie, is the group ready to approve the trails work plan as presented? Can I have a motion? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. Is someone trying to make a motion?
I'll move. So
Second.
Okay, great. Okay. Any further discussion on this?
Well, that would be a motion moving the question, so there is no further discussion.
Okay, sorry.
So back to the main motion, which is to approve the report as presented.
Yes. So,
I'll vote aye.
okay,
Vote in favor.
perfect. Okay, nice. Okay. Are there any nays? All right, then we'll approve it as presented.
Great.
All right, so we'll move on to the next item of business, and it's an update on letterboxing. And we welcome Lizzie Stone, Natural Resources Project Manager, and Sam Harb, the Parks Operation Manager, to give us an update.
Thank you. I lost my window there. I couldn't find it to see if I was muted or not. So I don't actually have much of a visual for this, but more just a conversation. I wanted to talk to y'all about the letterboxing program, which we are bringing back this year. As y'all are likely aware, this is a fun program that engages generally young folks to come out into the park. It's sort of like a scavenger hunt, similar to geocaching, where they go out and find boxes out in the parks. They put their own stamp in the booklet in the box and use the stamps or the box's stamp to stamp their own booklets, and then they can find all of them, and there's a celebration at the end of the season once they've found all of the letter boxes. This was a really popular program in the past, and it was paused for COVID, and now we are just now bringing it back. There were previously with this program, there was a couple of volunteers that did a lot of the support for the program that we have been learning as we're trying to bring it back. That support was in total nearly equivalent to about 2 hours a week throughout the season, which was June through October. And that was time spent leasing all the boxes out. Initially, they had staff support to update the crew booklets to be accurate for where those boxes were placed. But then the volunteers were going out and visiting the boxes, all 15 of them. There were 5 in each quadrant, about every 3 weeks to restock them, make sure that the their stamp pad had ink, or if something was taken from the box, or sometimes they got left open and filled with rain, and or the box itself just was missing. So they would go through and I'd find all of the boxes and then restock or replace them. As well as making sure that the clue booklets were stocked up and available for folks to come pick them up from a couple different locations around the island. So those volunteers are no longer wanting to be engaged. They are trying to pass the torch of their program, of this program on. And we do not currently have other volunteers who have voiced an interest in taking on this role of supporting the program to such a extent. It's pretty impressive that they were so dedicated to the program for so long. We appreciate that. We don't currently have staff time to dedicate 2 hours a week to letterboxing, but we do want to have it come back in some form and see what the interest is and respond to what we're hearing from the community once we get some version of it back and running. So a minimal version of the program that we are proposing is downsizing it a good bit. So we are talking about decreasing it to being just 1 quadrant and having 5 clues, a much smaller booklet, have it just be a pretty simple program, and the booklets are going to be much smaller and cheaper to print. And also that 1 quadrant will be a lot less of a burden of staff time for us to get out and restock and replace those boxes every few weeks. We will see how much interest there is in the program. And if there's a lot of folks who want to be involved in doing it, then we are open to considering expanding it more in the future. But at this stage, that's what we feel like we can handle with our current staffing. This weekend, we will be hosting a booth at the Leap for Green event to let the community know that the program will be starting back in some form, in a smaller form. That booth will be a stamp carving booth. It should be really fun. We have little stamp blanks and carving tools and ink pads of various different colors, so kids can come up, or adults can come up and carve whatever they want into their stamp and make their own special stamp that represents Pioneer Park to them, hopefully. That was a bit of a plug. If anyone else wants to volunteer to table that booth, we'll get back to that. So the clue books currently, and what we're imagining this being is we're going to make the clue books available for on Trails Day, National Trails Day, which is June 3rd, which is a Saturday. We'll be having an event in Pioneer Park on that day and passing out booklets there. The booklets will also be available at the community center, as well as hopefully the South End Starbucks. I've been in touch with some of the staff there, but I'm waiting to have a conversation with their store manager to make sure that they're okay with us stocking the booklets at their store. There will be a celebration of some kind at the end of the program, which will be probably October 31st. We will either have a celebration on that day or sometime in early November to acknowledge the folks that participated. There may be some kind of prizes for the most, or the best stamp, or the most engaged. I'm not exactly sure what that will look like yet, but we will come up with some fun celebration at the end of the program. So I guess I wanted to give y'all an update on what we're thinking about letterboxing at this point, and also inquire to the board if there is any interest in being involved in the program in some form in this year. If there is anyone who wants to take on a monthly or every 3-week walkthrough of one of the quadrants, we could potentially add more letterboxes if there could be a commitment of support to get out and restock and replace those periodically. And I guess just hear y'all's thoughts about the idea of downsizing it and what else you would like to see with the program. I guess I want to leave that open to discussion. And then I guess, since I might forget, I do also want to make a more solid plug that if anyone would like to join, our staff and also a couple of our board members are going to be present at Leap for Green. It should be a really fun event if anyone's interested in attending. It's from 10 until 2, and that involves standing behind the table and helping folks learn how to carve. And you get probably to make your own stamp too, if you would really like. So that's should be fun. Yes. Okay. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, open for discussion. I see Tom, you got your hand up.
Yes, along the lines of passing the torch, it really would be good to get some volunteers in to take over where the last volunteers left off. And to that end, might be good to have a sign-up sheet at the table at the Leap for Green,
Hmm.
describing what the program is in sufficient detail that a person could make a decision whether they wanted to make that commitment and sign up. And then I would volunteer to go down that list, contact the people who sign up, and see if we can get a solid commitment out of 2 or 3 people on the list to take over responsibility for the program.
That is a great suggestion. Thank you. And we do have a sign up sheet already in the outreach box that I put together. So I agree. That's a good idea. And I would love to find out who else is interested and who's involved as a volunteer. So hopefully we'll get some names and some interest. And I really appreciate you offering to reaching out to those folks. Yeah.
Yeah, this used to be a very popular program, and I know it's lost quite a bit of visibility, the last couple of years. I think it had to be, abandoned. But and I think you're wise to start back slowly, and hopefully we'll get back to where it was. So, any other comments? Okay, well, thank you for the update. And then the
Decide you want to volunteer on Saturday, just send me an email.
Yeah.
That's fine. You don't have to speak up in front of everyone.
Okay. Oh, we got, okay. Are these hands volunteering? Or do you all have questions?
Just one suggestion for Lizzie.
Yeah, okay.
Hillary Atay, Secretary. Lizzie, I'm wondering if you guys have considered reaching out to the Mercer Island Preschool Association. It's a parent organization, and I mentioned that they might be interested in helping to support that since it's I think, geared towards younger children.
Have not reached out to them, and I appreciate that suggestion.
Marie, you had a comment?
Same as Hillary, but you should probably also contact the PTA over at Lake Ridge.
Yeah.
If, I have the trend in my neighborhood is definitely young kids to be.
Marie, you're breaking up again.
I have a new. And I will come over. I would certainly help in now this summer, but I'm very flexible.
Marie, we can hear very little of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, well, perhaps you and Lizzie can catch up after the meeting and talk in more detail. I did hear you suggest the Lake Ridge PTA or Lakeview. Okay, Gerald, did you have a comment?
I was going to agree that I think coming back from a smaller geographical area is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to the Leap for Green and glad to hear there's some other people volunteered. And I'm a little bit sorry. I heard you said we used to have the participants come to our trust meeting in November. So sorry that maybe it's because of our quarterly meetings that doesn't align so well, but lots of support for the program. And I think I heard Marie say, like Marie, I'd be happy to have a very small role in letterboxing if I'm going to be out in the park anyway, which I usually am. I'd be happy to work with whoever the leaders are to have a small role in checking on the boxes. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, great. Marie, do you have one more comment?
Yeah, so is this better?
Yeah.
We can hear
Okay,
you.
I switched microphones.
Ah.
So the other thing I was just going to add to Hillary's suggestion. I think the elementary school PTAs would be another good place to just make sure they know about it. I'm sure people are driving by and seeing the signs, but the PTA has you know, newsletters and stuff. And yes, I would be happy to help out during the summer.
Yeah. Okay, and any other comments, guys? Okay, well, thank you so much for the update. I think you can tell that there's quite a bit of excitement about seeing the letterboxing program come back. So we're going to move on to the fourth item of the regular business, which is the 2023 restoration work plan. And we'll welcome back Lizzie Stone, Natural Resources Project Manager, to provide that to us.
Hello, me again. Lizzie Stone. I am again trying to share my screen here. And now I need to find my notes. Please bear with me. All right. Can y'all please give me a thumbs up or verbal confirmation you can see my screen?
Oh, yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So my last topic for this evening. This is our annual restoration work plan. Each year, our staff reports to the trust board on our plans for forest restoration activities in Pioneer Park and Engstrom Open Space. This work is guided by the Pioneer Park Forest Management, Pioneer Park Forest Health Plan, the 10-year update to our open space vegetation management plan, and now also by the goals that are associated with the 2022 Parks Levy funding. We accomplish our restoration work by working with contractors. We bring on a seasonal natural resources crew. We have our parks maintenance and natural resources staff doing a lot of this work, as well as a lot of effort from volunteers. With contractors alone this year, we will be working on nearly 23 acres of Pioneer Park and Engstrom open space. So we will be enrolling 10.7 acres of Pioneer Park and Engstrom in year one comprehensive weed removal. So that is a category of work that we that includes in ivy rings. It includes treatment of invasive trees. It also includes removal of all of the ground ivy and other herbaceous weeds that are growing throughout an entire zone. So 10.7 acres of full-on comprehensive removal in areas that haven't received it before. We'll be doing year two comprehensive removal, so revisiting those year one sites on 8.3 acres. We'll be doing maintenance in an area that had that comprehensive effort done back in many years ago. The initial efforts were put in place, and that's on 1.6 acres of Pioneer Park. And then we'll be planting about 200 new trees in about 2.2 acres of Pioneer Park. So in total comes out to just under 23 acres of contracted work, not to mention the work that will be done by our volunteers and natural resources crew, which we have really high hopes for how much we're going to accomplish, and I'll be reporting out at the end of the season how much we actually get done with all those folks. So to go quadrant by quadrant, in Pioneer Park Northwest in 2023, we'll be having our seasonal crew doing some maintenance of the parking area reclamation projects along 84th Avenue Southeast. This is where we removed some of the ever expanding parking areas along that road. We broke up a lot of that compacted soil and began to plant it a lot and are beginning to restore that western edge of Pioneer Northwest. So we'll have a lot of maintenance done this year by our crew. They'll also be doing monitoring and treatment of yellow archangel, a persistent population of yellow archangel that's on that northern edge. This year, I am going to be working with the crew to make a big effort to reach out to those landowners bordering the north end of the park. So with the goal of developing a plan to really manage that archangel population more effectively so that we don't have to continue to come back and manage it year after year. So we have big goals for getting a real plan in place to get that taken care of. With contractors, we will be doing maintenance in this green zone here The first year that comprehensive removal was done in that green zone was in 2007. So there's been periodic maintenance to make sure that weeds aren't taking back over. So we'll be doing some of that. That maintenance is due. So we'll do some of that with contractors, as well as first year comprehensive removal in this purple area. And just if you're confused why it's this funny line in the middle, it's because comprehensive has already been done in this southern section here. So we're going to complete that zone there this year. This work has not been contracted out yet. It will be going out to bid in the next few weeks, but I'm very confident that we'll be able to get that contracted out and completed. Okay, in Pioneer Park Northeast, we will be working with contractors to do comprehensive year one removal in this reddish zone of 1004A. That area was planted out a couple of years ago with a lot more trees. It has some pretty tricky terrain to manage, and so we're happy that we have contractors on board to get in there and remove a lot of that. A lot of the weeds that are growing on some steep slopes in areas that we would like to see be healthier forests. They will also be doing year two removal on a zone 1003A that's in this green color here. There was a ton of ivy removed from 1003A in 2022. So we'll be following up on that for year two removal and making sure that we're staying on top of any resprouts and regrowth that we have from that first year's effort. They will also be planting about 200 new trees on the steep slopes here in 1004B. So that, is with the goal of establishing our next generation of trees in some of those steep slopes that don't really have a lot of natural regeneration going on. Our natural resources crew will be doing some projects, smaller projects, and I have a few areas where there's a few ivy rings that they're doing here and there, as well as some invasive tree treatment going on here and there throughout Pioneer Northeast, as well as doing a comprehensive sweep for noxious weeds to monitor for them throughout this zone with a focus on the streams in the north end of this quadrant. We do have, I've been talking with our volunteer coordinator about plans to bring some volunteers into the southern edge of Pioneer Northeast. We don't have specific locations quite figured out yet, but we think that this zone would be really appropriate for volunteers. It's flat, there's a lot of ivy and but a lot of monocultures of ivy that don't have a lot of risk of damaging other native plants. So we're able to have those areas. They seem like kind of ideal for big volunteers. So that's kind of that's on our short list of locations for bringing in bigger volunteer groups to get started on removal. I next want to talk about Engstrom open space. We have a contract in place to have year one comprehensive done on this yellow zone here. This area will, it doesn't have too bad of steep slopes, but there's a lot of wet areas throughout this zone. And so we're glad to have contractors there to take care of this this habitat that we're trying to protect. We do also have our natural resources crew that is planning on doing surveys along the streams where there could be more introduction of noxious weeds, as well as throughout Engstrom open space. Oops. And then last but certainly not least, we've got Pioneer Southeast. We have contractors under contract to be enrolling the upper right corner there. That is in kind of a reddish color, 1003C. They will be enrolling that in year one comprehensive removal, as well as doing year two follow-up along this northern edge here. So this whole northern edge will have received at least 1 year of comprehensive at the end of this season. Pretty exciting. And our volunteers did last year a really great job of removing ivy in this yellow zone here. And we'll be having our regular volunteer events expanding into PP 1001. There are a lot of good projects in there that volunteers could help us do ivy rings and then start to expand that further and remove the blanket of ivy that we have in some sections of 1001. So we're really excited to see how far they can get. We'll be having a lot more events, and there's a lot of momentum in Pioneer Park this year. So we are excited to see how much of that zone we can get completed in a summer season. And then again, our natural resources crew will be doing some small projects around in different zones and doing monitoring for noxious weeds that they are surveying for noxious weeds and removing what they find throughout this zone. Ooh, a lot of the same words over and over. Okay, I believe that's all of my slides. And I guess I just would like to open it up to the board. I guess I'm going to stop share and I can share again if you need, because it's nice to see your faces.
Okay, so this is open for discussion. So does anyone have questions or suggestions for Lizzie? Greg?
Hi, it's a fantastic, robust plan. I'm very excited about it. And especially with the invasive species removal. That's an area that I've always wondered how the heck we were going to tackle that. And this is just an excellent start. I'm very pleased with the proposed work plan today.
Thanks for that feedback. That's nice to hear.
Let's see, Marie, you have a comment?
Thank you. This is Marie Bender. Just a curiosity question. How much more of the year one, because I assume that's where the impact of the park levy is most easily seen. How much of the year one stuff is being done because we have more money to spend on it?
Oh, most of it. We are able to get, this is way more than we were able to get done in years with previous budgets. The reason we're able to enroll 10 acres and do year 2 on 8 acres is because of this parks levy funding. We did, when coming up with the numbers for the parks levy, we thought through, like, if we are going to, within the term of this levy, which is 16 years, if we're going to enroll the entire park in comprehensive and have maintenance happening as needed on 4 and 5 year cycles, how much is that actually going to cost? And we calculated out what we think this will cost. And so this is us. I mean, we had estimated that we would try to enroll 6.5 acres each year. And this year we're enrolling 10.7 in our first year. So we're doing even more than that, because I imagine, we'll do as much as we can afford to do with our annual budget. So yes, this is a robust plan because of that parks levy funding. Does that answer your question?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Oh, Hillary?
Hillary Attain, Secretary. Lizzie, I have a question about the point you were bringing up with the landowners, the property owners around the Archangel zone. I'm just curious to hear what your engagement strategy goals are. Are you trying to just go ahead and contain that whole patch? Because I'm sure there's got to be a lot of it that crosses the official boundary into those properties. So with their permission, are you planning on doing chemical control on that edge on the private property side too?
As far as I'm aware, I am not allowed to do chemical treatment or really any work on private property in my role. So no, unfortunately, that is not an option that, as far as I know. But that last year I reached out, knocked on all those doors and left some pamphlets and some leaves of yellow archangel as an example of what we're talking about on those doorsteps. But it was really just one attempt to let folks know. And so I do want to make a more concerted effort this year to make sure that I actually speak with each of those folks, talk to them about some very specific options for how they can manage it, and to explain really clearly to them why this is an issue and why it's important for all of us to be working together to manage these weeds. So it is not going to be me doing or having the crew do any work on private property so much as just really spelling out what those options are and hopefully inspiring those landowners to manage it on their own property.
Great, cool. Thank you for your work. I know that's really hard. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to reflect on the comments that others have made. I think, this is really an exciting plan that you're putting forward, and something that we've all been hoping for. And, just wish wish the best and, you know, regrouping and seeing, you know, where we've gotten to a year from now. So this is, thank you for that presentation. So I think at this point, we need to entertain a motion to approve Lizzie's plan.
This is Craig. I move approval.
Okay, Greg, I have a second.
Second.
Okay, Hillary, second. All right, all those in favor, say, let's do aye and raise your hand at the same time so we can make sure we get it.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Recorded. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then any nays? Okay, then the approval, it is approved. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, let's see. We just have some additional business we need to tend to. We want to welcome Sam Harb to present updates for the department and the city.
Sam Harb, Parks Operations Manager. Good evening, trustees. Thank you, Lizzie, for sharing those last 3 items.
Yeah.
Go ahead and share my screen here. How's that look to everybody?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So I'll be giving a department report, April 20th, 2023. So just a reminder, we encourage all of the boards and commissions members to partake in parliamentary training. We have a couple of those sessions coming up, April 27th and May 11th. Those are about 2 hours in the evening, and those are held on Zoom. Ann McFarlane from Jurassic Parliament puts on the course, and it's titled Great Citizen Advisory Meetings. I think many of you have replied to Andrea, the city clerk, or myself that which one you would be signing up for. But if you haven't, please email me or the city clerk to let us know which one you're going to be attending. I'll probably be in one of them. It's a pretty useful class.
So Sam, my question, will they be reaching out? I had signed up for one, but should I expect to hear, you know, something further from them as the time comes closer?
So if you responded to the clerk's email, then you should be
Yes.
good to go. I think she's reached out to folks who haven't responded yet or haven't responded.
Okay.
From when this was first.
Yeah. So if we haven't heard, then we're okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to participate. And then next topic I just wanted to mention, give you an update on. There's been some past discussion about our meeting formats and, you know, how we meet, whether it's in person or on Zoom or the hybrid format. And oh yeah, I just got a note from Andrea, so she will be in contact soon with the info for the training.
Okay.
So yeah, as far as the meeting formats go, currently, just to give you an update, we're utilizing the hybrid format. We have a viewing station accessible at the community center, and that's set up by staff there for for our meetings and many other public boards and commissions meetings. So then the next style hybrid meeting is where folks are like a mix of staff and boards and commission members in person in city council chambers. And obviously, for those of you who haven't heard about the facility issues at City Hall, that's not a possibility right now. And we're hoping that's a temporary issue that will get resolved quickly and won't have to be ongoing. But that is another format of public meetings where there's audio video equipment set up with a mix of folks in person and virtual. And then lastly, there's the full in-person meeting, which would also, be recorded kind of like the more traditional style. And I will note that the last two styles with the in-person component do require significant more amount of staff resources to run those meetings. The way we're doing it right now is pretty efficient, and some of the boards and commissions are more well-staffed in general with how many people they have helping out. And so that if we were to move into that direction, it would be, just more of a staffing, it would require more staffing resources to do that. I have gotten feedback from some of the trusts that both in favor of in-person as well as the Zoom hybrid format that we're currently doing. So I think it is working for a lot of people, but there could be, suggestions to move in another direction as well. We've discussed with, some of my coworkers and the city clerk that we are meeting our obligations as far as the conducting public meetings. The bylaws for the Open Space Conservancy Trust are, sort of vague. They don't really call out this specific, meeting format, but the way they're written, we feel that we are meeting the intent of the bylaws as well. So basically we're open to hearing feedback, and we're here to support the trust and whatever you want to discuss and make recommendations for. But that's just an update on where we're at in terms of the meeting format. So I'm happy to speak with folks individually or by email, as well as, if you want to discuss this in future meetings. So then just moving on, we've got the some boards and commissions recruitment going on this year. So we have several expiring positions across the different boards and commissions, including Arts Council, Design Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, and Planning Commission. So for those interested, or citizens of Mercer Island, you can email the city clerk or go to the webpage for more information. Just a bit of a Parks and Natural Resources update. Lizzie kind of touched on it a little bit. We've had a lot of seasonal hiring going on. We've got our 2 crew members for the Trails and Natural Resources crew that are hired up. We're still trying to fill one more position, but we are happy with the help we're getting. And we also have a full-time vacancy on the parks maintenance side. It's been kind of a off and on hiring for about 2 years. And so it's just something we're used to at this point. But I do want to plug that we do have vacancies right now, both in Parks and Rec as well as other vacancies within the city. So folks that are watching or for the trust, if you have any people that are interested in any of our vacant positions, go ahead and check that stuff out. Volunteer events. So last year we had Jordan Fisher, our volunteer coordinator, really get the program started, and they've come back recently and just hit the ground running with all the foundation they started last year. And there's just been a lot of participation and a lot of volunteer events. So we're looking forward to continuing that through the season. And then a bit of an urban forestry update. So many of you know Andrew Prince. He formerly served in kind of a trails and urban forestry role. He's since changed positions, and now he's primarily focusing on the urban forestry, both in parks and other public spaces, right-of-ways, street trees, essentially. So something that's come up that's kind of got some attention is we've had to do some removals of some pines kind of on the north side of the island that had some pretty significant pine beetle infestations. And we've been messaging this quite a bit just through newsletter and city channels and things. And anytime you have to remove a bunch of trees, it's a cause for concern for a lot of folks. So I just wanted to kind of explain that, with tree removals, we're first assessing it for risk. And so if it's near a road or has any possibility of, being a hazard to life or property, then that's how we're addressing it. And we did, so several trees in Aubrey Davis Park, as well as Luther Burbank Park, were dead or dying and had some of these beetle infestations. It is important to note that a lot of these, or the two beetle species we've encountered, are native to the Northwest, but and typically, in a healthy forest, a healthy tree, they can kind of fend them off. But in some of the conditions we had, in certain park areas, based on maybe poor soil conditions or drought or just things like that, those can make the trees more susceptible to succumbing from those pest infestations. So that's kind of what we've seen. We've removed quite a few trees, or 15 to 20, I'd say, specifically related to this. We've reached out to DNR and had an expert with them, entomologists, come and sort of identify some of the specific bugs we were dealing with, and just give us some information. And we're also doing some treatments, some chemical treatments to some of the trees that aren't as far gone, just to try to preserve that. And other than that, we're just doing what we can to improve soil conditions and add mulch and just try to make the trees as healthy as they can be so that they can fend for themselves. And then we've done quite a lot of work recently in the bike skills area. So the new bike skills area location is located in Dean's Children's Park. And we've hosted several public meetings, as well as most recently, we've had some focus groups with different user groups in the area, both riders that would utilize that area, and then people that live in the neighborhood and that frequent not just Dean's, but the surrounding trail system that connects to it. And so we're looking at the area holistically. We're looking at the traffic corridors with vehicles, as well as how the trails are set up, and trying to sort of plan for any potential changes, and just get out ahead of anything like that. And then Lizzie mentioned it as well, but I'll just mention again, we've got Leap for Green Earth Day Fair this Saturday. It's going to be at the community center. Lots of city staff, as well as just some different presenters and vendors are going to be there. We're going to have quite a bit of equipment, electric vehicles and some alternative fuel vehicles and equipment to kind of show off, and it should be pretty fun. And then lastly, just want to bring up, this is just a brief description of our service request system. So this can be accessed from our city website, or you can download an app on your phone, the Mercer Island Connect app, and it allows someone in the public to, in real time, take a photo and put a pin location somewhere and report an issue. And it kind of gets routed to whatever crew it would be applicable to. But as far as parks and open spaces goes, it comes to our team, and we check this at least once a day sometimes more than once. It's not a emergency tool, so this is more of just something to report, and the more accurate information, the better, so that if there's pictures or specific descriptions of locations of the issue, then our crews can address that. And so that feel free to use that whenever you feel the need to. Any questions on any of that?
Marie?
I was just gonna make one comment on meetings. I'm sensitive to the use of staff time, but I also feel very strongly that in-person meetings promotes collegiality among the trust board members, which I think has been sorely lacking for the last 2 years. So I would just kind of maybe throw out that maybe we have 2 of our meetings in person or hybrid, and 2 of them we could just do Zoom. I think a logical choice for one of them would be the July meeting when we elect officers, and then the other meeting would be, you know, sort of open for discussion. So just a thought.
Yeah, Tom, I saw you had your hand up before.
Yeah, yes, thank you. It was related to this. In terms of the meeting format, when we last updated the bylaws, there was a discussion about electronic attendance. And at that point in time, the conclusion was that we were not going to support having a member attend the meeting remotely. So the interpretation of the action that we took at that point in time was to say that you needed to be present at the meeting in person. Now in the interim, we've had COVID, and we've discovered that it's possible to have effective meetings remotely. So at least the bylaws should be revisited with our experience in mind, and see if we need to actually update them to accommodate remote attendance. And then I kind of support the idea of having the option of attending in person at the council meeting room at least a few times a year. That sounds good to me. And there is that. I think that there's some things about in-person meetings that make them more effective than remotely. But I would want to drive toward a hybrid model for the future, where the bylaws would support trustees attending remotely as the need arose. And so I guess that can be put off to that discussion when we review the bylaws. But there may be some work that needs to be done. That's all I had.
All right, well, are we done with comments for Sam? But we could address some of this when we talk about topics for future meetings, if you'd like to, keep talking about this. So let's kind of put a hold on it for now, and then move on to the quadrant reports. So let's see, Northwest, we have Tom and Hillary.
Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. You want to start?
All right. So I've been through the Northwest Quad a couple times, taking the dogs around and looking at the trail quality, and there are some low spots that need to be filled in addition to the yellow areas that were shown on the map. So my offer to help staff identify those stands. And I noticed that in some places, people take brush or, whatever they can lay their hands on and toss them into the middle of the muddy spots, thinking that they'll keep the soles of their shoes dry. But we all know from experience that if you take organic material and you put it in the middle of the trail, it just gets ground into muck and it actually makes things worse. So I don't know if it would be effective to try to educate people to not do that. It's probably simply more effective to bring in gravel and make the trails dry, and then we don't have to worry about the addition of organic matter to the middle of trails like that. So and the usual kudos to the crew for coming in and keeping the trails blown and clear of organic matter mostly. And it's still early in the spring, so I haven't noticed any areas where we need to trim back the brush, but the plan to do kind of aggressive pruning of the beaked hazelnut and salmonberry as they encroach upon the trail is good. And also, I'd like to make a general comment that the trails seem to be getting wider over time. So it would be nice when the crews are out working on clearing the trails, if there's down tree or something like that they can use as curbing material, that should be moved into, like, if they're clearing out a tree which has fallen down, the tree can be used as curbing material to make a defined edge to the trail. And that will not only keep people on the trail, it will keep dogs on the trail too, because like humans, dogs are lazy and they won't leap over a log unless there's a squirrel on the other side or something interesting like that. But it really will be effective in keeping the dogs on the trail. So that's my input.
Thanks for that, Hillary.
To be honest, I don't know that I have much to add to what Tom was saying, because I was going to give everyone kudos for identifying those trouble spots and for making deeper pruning cuts, just to be able to manage all of the growth onto the trail, because I have noticed that, people will go ahead and snap the end growth of shrubs that are in the way. And specifically, like Tom was talking about, with people trying to keep their boots dry on a nature walk, folks have been removing whole sword fern fronds and just ripping them off the plants and laying them down in the trail. So yeah, whatever approach, I think, the combination, like Tom was saying, of education and just graveling or what have you, seems like a great way to go. But all in all, thanks again for all the work that you guys are constantly doing. It really matters and it's looking great.
Okay, thanks. Northeast, Marie and Craig, you want to go first, Marie? Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry, yep. I mean, I have to apologize. I haven't really been outside of the Northwest quadrant recently. I have noticed that the gravel going in, which is great. That's a never-ending project. Seems like every time we fill in a hole, another one develops. I did want to thank Sam very much. I'm sorry I wasn't at the last meeting, but I really, truly appreciate the bike rack. And I'm looking forward to using it this summer. So thank you. I think it's very discreet, but in a location that, makes it very serviceable. So, and I'm also happy to see the tree removed from our statue in the Northwest. The sort of down thing it was there for a while, but I'm glad that it's gone. So thank you. That's all.
Okay, Craig?
I was able to get down in the ravine last weekend and in a dry period, so I was very grateful for that. But everything looks really good. You could see some of the work they were already doing, restoring the low spots with gravel down in the Engstrom area. Although I did see one area where on that bridge that goes across the swamp or the causeway, and somebody had stepped off the trail, and I'm kind of wondering, maybe they lost their shoe because it was pretty muddy trying to get back up on the boardwalk in that area. So I thought, wow, now I know why there's a passing zone right in the middle of that whole thing. So anyway, it really looks very good. I know in the restoration report and some of the work plan, there were some other areas where tree rings were needed for ivy down in the ravine. Most noticeably right at the very top of the ravine trail where it ties into the overlook trail. There's kind of a swale that goes down into the bottom, and there was a few pretty large trees with a lot of ivy on them, and it might be just because it's down in the bog. I don't know. Hard to get to.
Oops, I think we lost him. Okay, shall we move on to Southeast, Jerry?
Yeah, I'll echo staff's the congratulations for staff's good work. I have seen a few little things, but nothing major, and try and report out when I see it. So thank you.
Yeah, I also do the Southeast, and I have to agree. I mean, it's very interesting to me because I was over in Northeast last year. You know how different the topography and the geography is of these two areas that are right across the street from one another. But I agree. I think that decide, a couple of slick spots here and there. I think that the Southeast quadrant is looking very good. All right, we're going to move to the last item, which is the section that allows us to address whether there are other topics that we want to have brought forward that we can put on the agenda for future meetings. And I wonder if you would have an interest in revisiting, transitioning to face-to-face meetings, or, maintaining the meetings that there are now, or alternatively reviewing the need to update the rules that are governing us, so the bylaws. So let me just, that's my thought. That's one thing that we can talk about, or if you'd like, we could put that on in a meeting to come. And this is also the opportunity to, kind of brainstorm about additional topics that you think we need to be adding to the agendas for future meetings. Any thoughts, guys? Thomas?
So yes, I already spoke briefly in favor of revisiting the bylaws, and I think the discussion of the meeting format and the bylaws update can be done probably concurrently. So I'd just like to put that as a topic for an upcoming meeting.
Okay. And Lisa?
Yeah, thanks. I am retired now and we travel a lot, so I really value the opportunity to participate remotely. And I think I get the trade-off, collegiality if everybody's in the same room, but if mandatory in the same room means one or more people can't participate at all, that kind of has the opposite effect. So I would, and I think City Council is staying kind of permanently with hybrid option. So I like the hybrid option. If we decide as a group to meet in person once a year, I will do my darndest to be there in person. But just a perspective from somebody who's not bound to be anywhere at any particular time.
Okay. And Craig, do you have your hand up? Did someone else have their, oh, Marie? Marie, you're muted. Marie, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I just want to clarify, I'm not in favor of mandatory in person. I think hybrid is a really good option because I am sometimes not here either, and I miss not being able to be in the meeting. I just think if it's a trade-off between staff time and, the collegiality of being together, we should sort of go 50-50. Some meetings in person, not in person, but, hybrid, and some meetings just straight Zoom.
Yeah, just a point of order before we go into further discussion here. The point of this item on the agenda is to raise topics for future discussion,
Right,
not
for
to go
future.
into them in detail at the current time. So I think we will we'll set aside some
Yeah.
time to discuss this at a future meeting.
Yes, thank you for that, Tom. I agree with that. So, I missed you again, Craig. So did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was trying to find the bidding information for the contractors that were going to do work in Pioneer Park, and I couldn't find it on the website. So I was hoping maybe Lizzie could point out to me or the board where we can find the information on who bid, and curious how the contracts are set up. You know, what kind of measurements do they do, and timeframes. And I'm former city engineer, so sorry for all of this, but it's of a lot of interest to me, curious interest, not scrutinizing everything, but I think it would be really interesting to know how many contractors and what they bid and things like that. So
Sure. Thanks for voicing an interest in that. I am supposed to be sharing that to be posted on the website, and it hasn't been yet because
sorry.
but I will thanks for the reminder. I will get that posted, and I will make a point of sending out information for how to find that to y'all. I'm thinking about that a lot, and I'm happy to talk about it a lot if you're interested, Craig.
Okay, great. So are there any other, so the only thing we've elevated so far is a discussion around bylaws and formatting of future meetings. Are there other topics that you'd like to see on the agenda? All right, well, I take that as a sign that we've got a good job in putting the agendas together. You know, we've usually have gone light with the ones that are coming up. So we will make a note that we need to add this to the agenda for discussion. Are there any other topics or areas of interest that you would like to explore? All right, well, then I think we're nearing the point where we can adjourn. We're adjourned. We've gone through the business part. And do I need a motion to adjourn?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
In a second.
Second.
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
And even the bar, that's great. And yeah, any nays? All right, so we'll stand adjourned. The next open space meeting is scheduled for, that doesn't make sense. This says April 20th. I know that's not true.
July 20th.
July
sorry.
20th.
July 20th at 5 p.m. There being no other business to come before the Open Space Conservancy Trust. The time is now 6:39 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. And I'll remind the trustees to stay seated until the city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Well, good evening, and we'll see you next time.